The alarm rang through Jake Morrison's headset at exactly 2 in the morning. He groaned and pulled himself up from the security desk where he had been dozing. Another boring night shift at the new Terra Colony storage facility, or so he thought. Jake grabbed his flashlight and scanner as he headed toward the medical supply warehouse. The motion sensors had picked up something in Section 12. Probably just a stray animal again. The local creatures loved to sneak in looking for warm places to sleep. He moved quietly through the dark aisles, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The colony had been built only 3 years ago, and everything still smelled new and clean. Humans had finally made it to the stars and joined the big galactic community. New Terra was supposed to be a fresh start, a trading post where different species could meet and do business. Jake turned the corner into Section 12 and froze. There was someone there, not an animal, a person. A small figure crouched near the medical supplies, stuffing items into a torn bag. He raised his flashlight. The beam caught pale blue skin and large dark eyes that went wide with terror. An alien girl, probably a teenager if he had to guess. She was thin, too thin, and her clothes were nothing but dirty rags hanging off her small frame. "Hey," Jake called out, trying to sound calm. "Stop right there." The girl spun around and stumbled backward. For a moment, Jake thought she would run. Her legs tensed and her eyes darted toward the exit. But then something changed. Her face went from scared to hopeless. Her legs seemed to give out beneath her, and she collapsed onto the floor like a puppet with cut strings. Jake rushed forward on instinct. "Are you okay?" She curled into a ball, protecting her head with her arms. She was shaking. Not from cold, Jake realized. From fear. He knelt down slowly, keeping his movements careful and gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you. Can you understand me?" The girl didn't respond. She just kept shaking, making small sounds that might have been sobs. Jake looked at her more carefully now. She belonged to a species he recognized from the colony briefings. Velkari, they were called. They had blue skin, big eyes, and delicate builds. But this girl looked wrong. Her skin was covered in bruises, old and new. There were bandages on her arms, dirty and coming loose. He could see her ribs through her thin clothing, something twisted in Jake's chest. This wasn't just a thief. This was someone in serious trouble. He should call this in. Report her to the authorities. Let them handle it. That was the proper procedure. But Jake had been a soldier before he became a security guard. He had seen desperate people before. He knew what real suffering looked like. "Listen," he said softly. "I'm going to help you up, okay? Nice and easy." The girl flinched when he touched her shoulder, but she didn't pull away. She didn't have the strength to pull away. Jake helped her to her feet, and she swayed like she might fall again. Up close, she smelled terrible, like she hadn't bathed in weeks. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Come with me," he said. "Not to jail. To my place. You need food and medical attention." The girl looked at him with those huge dark eyes. There was no trust there, no hope. Just exhausted confusion. Jake's apartment was only 10 minutes away from the warehouse. He practically carried the girl there, supporting most of her weight. She was so light it scared him. When had she last eaten a proper meal? Inside his small living space, Jake sat her down on his couch. She looked around nervously like she expected a trap. He went to the kitchen and started pulling out food. Bread, cheese, some fruit, leftover chicken from dinner. He piled it all on a plate and brought it to her. "Eat," he said simply. She stared at the food, then at him, then back at the food. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took a piece of bread. She bit into it and her eyes closed. A sound escaped her throat, something between a gasp and a cry. Then she ate like she was starving. Because she was starving. She shoved food into her mouth so fast Jake worried she might choke. He brought her water and she drank an entire glass in seconds. When the plate was empty, she looked up at him with something like wonder on her face. Like she couldn't believe what had just happened. Jake grabbed his basic medical kit from the bathroom. "Let me look at those bandages," he said, pointing to her arms. She hesitated, then slowly unwrapped the dirty cloth. Jake had to work hard to keep his face neutral. The wounds underneath were infected and angry. Someone had beaten her badly. There were marks that looked like they came from some kind of whip or cord. He cleaned the wounds as gently as he could, even though he knew it must hurt. She didn't make a sound. She just watched him with those big eyes like she still couldn't understand why he was being kind. When he finished, he sat back and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was just a kid, maybe 16, maybe younger. It was hard to tell with aliens. But she was definitely young and definitely in bad shape. Okay, Jake said. I need to know what happened to you. Do you speak English? She shook her head. Jake went to his desk and pulled out a translator device. The colony gave them to all security personnel. He turned it on and clipped it to his shirt. Try now, he said. The girl opened her mouth. The sounds that came out were soft and musical, nothing like human speech. But the translator turned them into words Jake could understand. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice was hoarse and broken. Thank you for the food. What's your name? Jake asked gently. Lyra, she said. My name is Lyra. Lyra, I'm Jake. I want to help you. But I need to know what happened. Why were you stealing medical supplies? Lyra looked down at her hands. They were trembling. When she spoke again, her voice was so quiet Jake had to lean forward to hear. Because I am dying, she said, and I have nowhere else to go. Jake felt his heart crack. Tell me everything, he said. Start from the beginning, and so she did. Lyra's story came out in pieces, broken by long silences and tears she tried to hide. Jake sat across from her listening and felt anger building in his chest with every word. She told him about the Velkari homeworld. It had been beautiful once, she said. Green forests and blue oceans, cities that glowed at night, but that was before the mining companies came. The Galactic Council had approved the contracts. Big corporations wanted the rare metals buried in Velkari soil. The Velkari government was poor and desperate, so they signed the papers. The mining destroyed everything. It poisoned the water and killed the forests. The cities fell apart because there was no money left to maintain them. Millions of Velkari lost their homes and their way of life, and the corporations just moved on to the next planet when there was nothing left to take. That was 70 years ago, Lyra said through the translator, before I was born, before my mother was born. But the damage didn't end with the planet. The Velkari government had borrowed huge amounts of money from galactic banks to survive. When they couldn't pay it back, the council stepped in. They created something called labor contracts. Velkari citizens would work for other species to pay off the debt. Jake felt sick. You mean slavery? Lyra looked at him with sad eyes. The council does not call it that. They call it indentured servitude. They say it is legal and proper. They say we agreed to the terms. You didn't agree to anything, Jake said. You weren't even born yet. That does not matter, Lyra said quietly. I was born into the contract. My mother was in service. That made me property too. She told him about growing up on a merchant ship called the Silver Wind. It was owned by a Krithian trader named Vexul. There were 37 Velkari on that ship, all working as servants, cleaners, cargo handlers. Lyra had been there since she was 5 years old. She had never been to school. She had never played with other children her age. She had only worked. Vexul was cruel. If the Velkari worked too slowly, he beat them. If they made mistakes, he cut their food rations. If they complained, he sold them to someone worse. Lyra had watched 3 of her friends get sold over the years. She never saw them again. The council has laws about treatment of servants, Lyra said. Her voice was flat, like she had given up on the words mattering. But no one enforces them. Not for species like mine. We are considered lesser. Our complaints are ignored. Jake's hands were clenched into fists. He made himself relax them. What happened 3 weeks ago? How did you end up here? Lyra's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. I dropped a crate of expensive goods. It broke open and the contents were damaged. Vexul was so angry. He beat me worse than ever before. He used a shock prod. She pulled up her sleeve to show Jake. There were burn marks on her arm, circular and deep. Some of them were infected. He left me in the cargo hold for 2 days without food or water. When he finally let me out, he said he was going to sell me at the next port. He said he would get a good price for a young female, even a damaged one. Lyra's voice cracked. I knew what that meant. Where I would end up. What would happen to me? Jake did know. He had heard the rumors about certain slave markets in the outer systems. Places where young beings were bought for terrible purposes. His stomach turned. The ship docked at New Terra for a supply run, Lyra continued. There was a moment when the cargo bay was open and no one was watching. I just ran. I did not think. I just ran. She had been hiding in the lower levels of the colony ever since. The maintenance tunnels and abandoned construction areas. She found scraps of food in trash containers. She drank water from runoff pipes. But the infection in her wounds kept getting worse. She developed a fever. She knew she was dying. That is why I tried to steal the medicine, Lyra said. I thought maybe I could treat the infection myself. I did not want to die in the tunnels alone. She looked at Jake with something like apology in her eyes. I am sorry I stole from your people. I know it was wrong, but I had no choice. Jake shook his head. You have nothing to apologize for. What will you do now? Lyra asked. The fear was back in her voice. Will you report me? Will you send me back to Vexul? The question hung in the air between them. Jake knew what he was supposed to do. The law was clear. Lyra was stolen property. He should contact the authorities and let them sort it out. That was his job, but Jake was human. And humans had a particular feeling about slavery. No matter what fancy name you gave it, his ancestors had fought a war over it. They had marched and protested and bled to end it. The idea that someone could own another person made human blood boil in a way other species didn't always understand. Jake looked at this scared, broken girl sitting on his couch. She had been beaten and starved and treated like garbage her entire life, and now she was asking him if he was going to send her back to the monster who did it. There was only one answer a human could give. No, Jake said firmly. I'm not sending you anywhere. You're safe now. Lyra stared at him. But the law says, I don't care what the law says, Jake interrupted. The law is wrong. What was done to you is wrong. And I'm going to help you. Why? Lyra whispered. The question seemed to hurt her. Why would you help me? What do you want from me? Jake's heart broke all over again. She couldn't even imagine someone helping her without wanting something in return. That was what her life had taught her. I don't want anything, Lyra, he said gently. I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do. Because you're a person, not property. Because no one deserves what happened to you. Tears ran down Lyra's blue cheeks. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. Not quiet tears this time, but deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere dark and painful inside her. Jake let her cry. He didn't try to stop her or comfort her. Sometimes people just needed to let it out. When she finally calmed down, he handed her a tissue. Get some rest, he said. You can sleep on my bed. I'll take the couch. In the morning, we'll figure out what to do next. You will not change your mind? Lyra asked. You will not call the authorities while I sleep? I promise, Jake said. You're safe here. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, like she was trying to decide if she could trust him. Finally, she nodded. She was too exhausted to do anything else. Jake watched her walk to his bedroom and close the door. Then he sat down on the couch and put his head in his hands. He had just committed to helping a runaway alien slave. He could lose his job over this. He could face criminal charges for harboring stolen property. But he didn't care. Some things were more important than laws. Some things were worth the risk. Jake pulled out his personal communicator and stared at it. He couldn't do this alone. He needed help. He needed people he could trust. He started making calls. Kate Sullivan arrived at Jake's apartment at 6 in the morning with coffee and a worried expression. She had been Jake's friend since their military days together. Now she worked in the colony's administrative office, handling paperwork and permits for the endless stream of traders who came through New Terra. You said it was urgent, Kate said as she stepped inside. What's going on? Jake gestured toward the bedroom. There's someone I need you to meet. But Kate, before you go in there, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll listen to the whole story before you make any judgments. Kate's eyes narrowed. Jake, what did you do? Promise me. Okay, fine. I promise. Jake opened the bedroom door quietly. Lyra was still asleep on the bed, curled up in a tight ball. Even in sleep, she looked tense and afraid. Kate gasped softly when she saw the bruises and bandages covering the girl's thin body. Dear God, Kate whispered. Jake, who is she? They went back to the living room and Jake told her everything. Lyra's story, the abuse, the escape. Kate listened with growing horror, her coffee forgotten in her hand. So you're hiding a runaway indentured servant, Kate said when he finished. Do you understand what kind of trouble you're in? I know, Jake said. But I couldn't just turn her in, Kate. You didn't see her eyes when she asked if I was going to send her back. I couldn't do it. Kate was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. No, I don't suppose you could. I couldn't either, if I'm being honest. She set down her coffee cup. So what's the plan? I was hoping you could help me figure that out. Kate pulled out her datapad and started typing. Okay, let's think about this logically. The owner, this Vexel character, has he reported her missing? I don't know. Probably. If he has, then there are bounty hunters looking for her right now. Felkari have distinctive biosignatures. If they scan this building, they'll find her. Jake's stomach dropped. He hadn't thought about that. Kate kept typing, her fingers moving fast across the screen. But there might be a way out of this. Give me a few hours to research something. In the meantime, call Marcus. If her wounds are infected, she needs proper medical care. Marcus Chen was the doctor at the colony's main hospital. He had served with Jake and Kate in the military medical corps. When Jake called him and explained the situation, Marcus didn't hesitate. Bring her to my clinic, Marcus said. The private one, not the hospital. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Getting Lyra to the clinic without being seen was tricky. Jake wrapped her in a long coat and put a hat on her head to hide her blue skin. She walked between him and Kate, looking terrified the whole time. Marcus's private clinic was in a quiet part of the colony. He ushered them inside quickly and locked the door behind them. When he saw Lyra in the light, his professional calm slipped for just a moment. Sit down, honey, he said gently. Let me take a look at you. Lyra sat on the examination table, trembling. Marcus worked carefully, documenting every injury with his scanner. The infection in her wounds was worse than Jake had thought. Marcus had to give her antibiotics through an injection. He also found evidence of old fractures that had healed badly, and signs of chronic malnutrition. Whoever did this to her should be put in jail, Marcus said quietly. This is torture. While Marcus treated Lyra, Kate made some calls of her own. By the time they got back to Jake's apartment, she had gathered 2 more people. Lisa Grant was a lawyer who specialized in galactic law. She was sharp and serious, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Danny Price was a transport pilot who ran supply routes between the colony and the capital city. He was young and cheerful, with an easy smile that put people at ease. They all crowded into Jake's small living room. Lyra sat on the couch looking overwhelmed by all the attention. She kept glancing at the door like she might need to run. It's okay, Jake said softly. These are my friends. They're here to help. Lisa pulled out her data pad and got straight to business. I've been reviewing galactic law regarding indentured servitude. The situation is complicated, but there might be a loophole we can use. What kind of loophole? Jake asked. The Galactic Council allows individual member species to grant asylum to beings who are being subjected to cruel or unusual treatment. Earth has used this clause before, but not frequently. If we can get Lyra to the human embassy in the capital city, she can formally request asylum from Earth's ambassador. Kate leaned forward. Would the ambassador grant it? Based on the evidence Marcus documented? Absolutely. Ambassador Cross has a reputation for being fierce about human rights. Or, well, sapient rights. She won't tolerate this kind of abuse. So we just need to get Lyra to the capital, Danny said. That's 300 kilometers. I can fly her there in my transport. It's not that simple, Lisa said. I did some checking. Vexel reported Lyra missing 3 days ago. There are bounty hunters actively searching for her. They have authorization to scan any vehicle leaving the colony. Then how do we get her out? Jake asked. Danny smiled. We get creative. My transport has a cargo hold with a false bottom. We used it during the war to smuggle supplies past enemy blockades. We can hide Lyra in there. Even if they scan the ship, they won't find her. Marcus frowned. Is it safe? Will she have enough air? It's not comfortable, but it's safe. I've transported people that way before. We'd need to build up the hiding spot a bit more. Make it better insulated. That'll take me a day, maybe 2. We don't have 2 days, Kate said. I checked the port records. Vexul's ship is scheduled to leave in 48 hours. If he doesn't find Lyra by then, he might give up and leave. But if he catches even a hint that we have her before he goes... She didn't need to finish the sentence. They all knew what would happen. Lisa looked at Lyra. What do you want? This is your choice. We can try to get you to the embassy, but it's risky. Or we can try to hide you here until Vexul leaves, then figure out something else. Lyra had been quiet through the whole conversation, following along through her translator. Now everyone was looking at her, waiting for her answer. She looked scared. But underneath the fear, Jake could see something else. Something that looked like hope. I want to be free, Lyra said softly. I want to never go back to that ship. If there is a chance, even a small one, I want to take it. Jake felt pride swell in his chest. This girl had been beaten down her whole life, but she still had fight left in her. Then we're doing this, he said. Danny, how fast can you prepare the transport? Give me until tomorrow night. I'll have everything ready. Kate, can you forge the exit permits? Kate smiled. Please. I've been forging permits since before you knew what a datapad was. Marcus, make sure Lyra is healthy enough to travel. Give her whatever medicine she needs. Already on it. Jake turned to Lisa. And you figure out exactly what Lyra needs to say to the ambassador. We're only going to get one shot at this. Everyone nodded. They had a plan. It was dangerous and probably illegal. But it was a plan. After the others left, Jake sat down next to Lyra on the couch. You should rest. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Lyra looked at him with those huge dark eyes. Why are all of you doing this? You could get in trouble. Bad trouble. Why would you risk that for me? Jake thought about how to explain it. How to put into words something that felt so obvious to him but seemed impossible to her. Because you matter, Lyra, he said finally. You're a person. You have value. And where I come from, we don't let people suffer when we can help them. We just don't. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out and took Jake's hand. Her fingers were small and cold. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me as a person. For being kind. I will never forget this. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Just hang on a little longer. We're going to get you out of here. Outside the window, the colony was waking up. Ships came and went from the spaceport. Aliens of a dozen different species walked the streets. And somewhere out there, bounty hunters were searching for a small blue girl who just wanted to be free. The clock was ticking. Danny worked through the night on his transport ship. Jake came to help him, mostly holding tools and passing supplies while Danny welded and hammered. They built a small compartment beneath the cargo hold floor, just big enough for Lyra to lie down in. Danny lined it with insulation and installed an air recycling system. She'll be okay in here for the 3-hour flight, Danny said, wiping sweat from his forehead. It won't be comfortable, but she'll be safe. That's all that matters, Jake said. They loaded the cargo hold with legitimate supplies, boxes of food and equipment headed for the capital. If anyone looked inside, they would see a normal transport run. They wouldn't see the frightened girl hidden below the floor. The plan was simple. Danny would file a flight plan for a routine supply delivery. Jake and Kate would ride along as security escorts, which wasn't unusual for valuable cargo. They would pass through the checkpoint at the colony border, then fly straight to the capital city. Once there, they would take Lyra directly to the human embassy. Lisa had already contacted Ambassador Cross's office. She had explained the situation carefully, sending along Marcus's medical scans as evidence. The ambassador's assistant had promised that Cross would see them immediately upon arrival. Everything was ready. The only question was whether they could get past the checkpoint without being caught. The next evening, Jake brought Lyra to the spaceport. She was wearing human clothes now, a jacket and pants that Kate had bought for her. With a scarf covering her blue skin and a hat hiding her face, she might pass for human from a distance. But up close, there was no hiding what she was. They met Danny at his ship. Marcus was there too, with a medical kit in case anything went wrong. How are you feeling? Marcus asked Lyra, scared, she admitted. But ready, Marcus smiled. That's brave. You're very brave. Lyra looked at the transport ship. It was small and old, with scorch marks on the hull from years of use. To her, it must have looked like freedom. Let me show you where you'll be hiding, Danny said gently. Inside the cargo hold, Danny opened the hidden compartment. It was dark and cramped. Lyra stared at it, and Jake saw her start to shake. I know it's small, Jake said, but it's only for a few hours. Can you do it? Lyra nodded, but she looked terrified. Jake realized what the problem was. She had spent 2 days locked in a cargo hold when Vexul punished her. Being trapped in a small dark space must bring back terrible memories. Hey, Jake said softly. He knelt down so he was at her eye level. This is different. You're not being punished. You're escaping, and we're right here with you. Kate and I will be in the ship the whole time. If anything goes wrong, we'll get you out. I promise. Lyra took a deep breath. Then another. Okay, she said. I can do this. She climbed into the compartment. Danny had put a thin mattress inside, along with a bottle of water and a light she could turn on if she needed it. Once she was settled, Danny closed the panel. From the outside, it looked like a normal floor. Can you hear me, Lyra? Jake asked. Yes, her voice came back muffled but clear. I can hear you. Good, just stay quiet and still. We'll tell you when it's safe to come out. Danny filed his flight plan and got clearance to depart. Jake and Kate strapped into the passenger seats as the ship lifted off from the spaceport. Through the window, Jake could see the colony shrinking below them. They were really doing this. They were really trying to smuggle a runaway slave past galactic authorities. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. The flight to the border checkpoint took 30 minutes. As they approached, Danny got on the radio. Transport ship Delta 7 requesting permission to pass through checkpoint. Delta 7, you are cleared to approach. Prepare for inspection. They landed at the checkpoint station, a small outpost at the edge of the colony territory. This was the dangerous part. If the bounty hunters had alerted checkpoint security to watch for Velkari biosignatures, they were finished. 2 guards approached the ship. One was human, a young woman Jake recognized from the colony security force. The other was a Krathian, the same species as Vexul. Jake's blood ran cold. The human guard, her name was Amy, waved at Danny. Hey Danny, routine run? Just supplies for the capital, Danny said casually. Food, equipment, boring stuff? Amy looked at her data pad. I need to scan your cargo. Sure, no problem. She walked up the ramp into the cargo hold with a handheld scanner. Jake held his breath. The scanner could pick up life signs, but would it detect Lyra through the hidden compartment's insulation? Amy walked slowly through the cargo hold, waving her scanner over the boxes. Jake watched the Krathian guard. He was standing near the ship's entrance, looking bored. Did he know they were looking for a Velkari girl? Would he scan more carefully if he suspected something? Everything looks good, Amy said, coming back down the ramp. You're clear to go. But the Krathian guard stepped forward. Oh wait, I want to scan as well. Jake's stomach dropped. Amy looked surprised. There's no need. I already cleared them. I have standing orders to scan all ships for Velkari biosignatures, the Krathian said. He pulled out his own scanner, a more advanced model than Amy's. Danny's hands tightened on the ship's controls. Kate's face had gone pale. If that scanner picked up Lyra, it was over. The Krathian guard walked up the ramp. He moved slowly through the cargo hold, his scanner making soft beeping sounds. Jake could see the readings on the device from where he sat. It was calibrated specifically for Velkari life signs. The guard moved closer to where Lyra was hidden. The scanner beeped louder. Jake made a decision. He stood up and walked to the cargo hold. Is there a problem? The Krathian looked at him. My scanner is picking up a faint signal. There may be a Velkari on this ship. That's impossible, Jake said. He kept his voice calm and confident. We're just carrying supplies. Then you won't mind if I look more carefully. The guard knelt down near the hidden compartment. His fingers moved along the floor, searching for seams. Jake's hand moved to the weapon at his belt. He didn't want to use it. But he would if he had to. He would not let them take Lyra. The Krathian's fingers found the edge of the compartment panel. There is something here. A hidden space. Stop, Jake said. His voice was hard now. You're not opening anything. The guard stood up and faced Jake. He was bigger, taller, with the natural armor plating that Krathians had. But Jake was human, and humans had a reputation. I have legal authority to search this vessel, the guard said. And I'm telling you that you're not searching anything else. This ship is under human protection. Amy came running up the ramp. Jake, what's going on? This Krathian is harassing us, Jake said, not taking his eyes off the guard. He's cleared our cargo. He has no reason to keep searching. I detected a Velkari signature, the guard insisted. Then your scanner is broken, Kate said, coming up behind Jake. We're human citizens on a legal supply run. Unless you want to create a diplomatic incident, I suggest you let us go. The Krathian looked at them both. Jake could see him calculating. He had the law on his side, technically. But he was one Krathian facing down 2 armed humans on a human colony. And humans were known for being unreasonably protective of people they decided to care about. Amy looked uncomfortable. Look, I already scanned the ship. Everything was clean. Maybe your scanner is picking up residue from an earlier cargo run. The guard's eyes narrowed. He knew something was wrong. But he also knew that pushing this further could get ugly. I will report this, he said finally. You do that, Jake said. The Krathian guard left the ship. Amy looked at Jake with knowing eyes. She knew something was up. But she was human and she trusted Jake. Get out of here, she said quietly. Before he changes his mind. Danny didn't need to be told twice. The ship lifted off before the guard could call for backup. As they flew away from the checkpoint, Jake exhaled for what felt like the first time in an hour. Lyra, he called. You okay? Yes, came the muffled reply. What happened? We made it through. We're on our way to the capital. In the hidden compartment, Lyra started to cry, not from fear this time, from relief. The capital city of New Terra was called Hope Landing, and it lived up to its name. The buildings were tall and gleaming, built by a dozen different species working together. Ships from across the galaxy came and went from the massive spaceport. It was everything the Galactic Council promised, a place where different worlds could meet in peace. Danny landed his transport at a commercial dock on the edge of the city. As soon as they were down and the engines were off, Jake opened the hidden compartment. Lyra climbed out, stiff and shaking. Her face was wet with tears. It's okay, Jake said, helping her up. We're here. You're safe now. Kate had called ahead and a car was waiting for them outside the dock. The driver was a young human man who worked for the embassy. He didn't ask questions, just drove them quickly through the city streets toward the embassy district. The human embassy was a modest building compared to some of the others. Earth was still new to the galactic community, and they hadn't built up the same kind of grand structures as species who had been here for centuries. But the building had something the others didn't. It had the Earth flag flying out front, and to Jake that meant something. Ambassador Helen Cross met them at the entrance. She was a tall woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and gray-streaked hair. She had been a soldier once, like Jake, and then a diplomat. She had a reputation for being tough but fair. You must be Lyra, Ambassador Cross said gently. She knelt down so she was at eye level with the girl. I've been told what happened to you. I'm so sorry, but you're safe now. I promise you that. Lyra looked at the ambassador with wide, disbelieving eyes. You will help me? Even though I am Valkyrie? Even though I am just a servant? Ambassador Cross's face hardened. You're not a servant. You're a person. And Earth doesn't recognize ownership of people, no matter what the Galactic Council says. She led them inside to a conference room. Lisa was already there, having taken an earlier flight. She had all the legal documents prepared, along with Marcus's medical scans displayed on a large screen. The ambassador reviewed everything carefully. She looked at the photos of Lyra's injuries. She read the testimony Jake had recorded. She studied the contract that claimed to own Lyra like property. With each page, her expression grew darker. This is barbaric, Ambassador Cross said finally. I've seen a lot in my years with the Council, but this is beyond acceptable. She looked at Lyra. I'm granting you immediate asylum under Earth's protection. Effective immediately, you are under the jurisdiction of Earth law, not Galactic Council law. No one can touch you. Lyra's hands flew to her mouth. Really, you mean it? I mean it. You're free. Lyra burst into tears. Not quiet tears, but loud, gasping sobs. All the fear and pain and hope she had been holding inside came pouring out. Jake put his arm around her shoulders and let her cry. Ambassador Cross stood up. But we're not done. This Vexel character needs to answer for what he did. I'm filing formal charges against him with the Galactic Council for crimes against sapient rights. Lisa looked worried. Ambassador, that could cause problems. The Council usually doesn't prosecute these cases, and the Creathian government might push back. Let them push, Ambassador Cross said firmly. Earth has had enough of this indentured servitude nonsense. We're going to make an example of this case. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. Ambassador Cross personally delivered the asylum papers to the Galactic Council headquarters. She gave a speech that made it clear Earth would protect Lyra and any other being suffering under similar contracts with military force if necessary. The Council was in an uproar. Some species supported Earth's stance, quietly grateful that someone was finally speaking up about the abuses in the system. Other species, particularly those who benefited from cheap indentured labor, were furious. The Creathian delegation demanded that Lyra be returned immediately. Ambassador Cross's response was simple and direct. No. Vexul himself tried to claim his property. He showed up at the embassy with legal documents and demands. Ambassador Cross met him at the door with a squad of armed human security guards. Get off Earth territory, she told him. If you come back, you'll be arrested for slavery and assault. The Council will hear about this, Vexul snarled. You cannot just steal property. She's not property. She's a person under my protection. And if you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I'll have you detained on charges of threatening a human citizen. Vexul left, but the situation was far from over. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions to discuss Earth's actions. Some called it a violation of established law. Others called it a necessary stand against injustice. In the end, the council made a reluctant decision. They sided with Earth, but only barely. The vote was close, and it set a new precedent. Individual species could now grant asylum to indentured servants if they could prove abuse. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a crack in the system. More importantly, word spread. Other Velkari in similar situations heard about Lyra's case. They started showing up at human colonies and embassies requesting asylum. Then other species started coming too. Beings from a dozen different worlds, all trapped in contracts they never agreed to. All suffering under masters who treated them like animals. Earth's colonies became known across the galaxy as places of sanctuary. The humans took in everyone who asked. They fed them, healed them, gave them safe places to live, and they stood up to anyone who tried to take them back. It caused diplomatic problems. It made some species angry, but the humans didn't seem to care. They had decided that this was more important than smooth relations with the council. This was about what was right. For Lyra, life changed completely. The embassy gave her a small apartment in Hope Landing. Ambassador Cross personally made sure she had everything she needed. Food, clothes, medical care, education, things she had never had before. Jake visited her often. She was slowly learning to live without fear. She smiled more now. She was starting to trust that good things could happen without a hidden cost. 6 months after Jake caught her stealing, Lyra stood in the embassy's community center. The room was filled with humans and other aliens who had been granted asylum. Kate had helped Lyra write a speech, practicing it with her for weeks. Lyra walked to the podium on shaky legs. She looked out at the crowd and saw Jake smiling at her. That gave her strength. "My name is Lyra," she said in English. She had been learning the language, working hard every day. Her accent was thick, but her words were clear. 6 months ago, I was a slave. I thought I would die as a slave. I thought that was all my life could be. She paused, gathering her courage. Then I met Jake Morrison. He caught me stealing. He should have turned me in. But he didn't. He saw me as a person. He and his friends risked everything to save me. They did not ask for anything in return. They just wanted to help. Lyra's voice grew stronger. I learned something from the humans. I learned that kindness is not a trick. That freedom is worth fighting for. That one person who cares can change everything. She looked directly at Jake. Jake told me once that I matter, that I have value. For my whole life, no one had ever said that to me. But he meant it. And he proved it. The room was silent. People were wiping tears from their eyes. There are millions of beings in the galaxy like I was, Lyra continued. Trapped, suffering, treated like property. I am just one, but I am free because humans refused to accept what the galaxy said was normal. They refused to look away from suffering. She took a deep breath. I do not know if we can change the whole galaxy, but we can change it one person at a time, one act of kindness at a time. That is what the humans taught me, and that is what I will teach others. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Lyra stood there overwhelmed. Ambassador Cross stood up and hugged her. You did wonderfully, she said. After the speech, Jake found Lyra outside on the embassy balcony. She was looking up at the stars, so many stars. Somewhere out there was her homeworld. Maybe someday she could go back and help rebuild it. You were amazing in there, Jake said. Lyra smiled at him. I was scared, but you taught me to be brave even when I am scared. I didn't teach you anything, Jake said. You were already brave. You survived things that would have broken most people. You just needed someone to see that. You saw me when I was invisible, Lyra said softly. You caught me stealing, but you gave me everything. My life, my freedom, my hope. She took Jake's hand. How do I say thank you for something like that? Jake squeezed her hand gently. You already did. You told your story. You inspired others. That's the best thank you anyone could ask for. Below them, the city lights sparkled. Ships came and went from the spaceport. The galaxy kept turning, but something had changed. Earth had drawn a line in the sand. They had said that some things were not acceptable no matter what the law said. That people mattered more than profits. That freedom was worth fighting for. And other species were starting to listen. More humans were joining the Galactic Council. More voices were speaking up against the old systems. Change was coming, slow but steady. It had started with one security guard who refused to look away from suffering. One girl brave enough to run toward freedom. and a group of friends willing to risk everything to do what was right. That was the human way. That was why, as the galaxy was learning, you didn't mess with people under